morning, everyone. We are here today in the Responsible Investment Live conference with pre-recorded debates in presence of Claudia Kruse from APG and Piet Klop from PGGM. We will talk about the asset owner platform that you have created together more than a year ago and announced at the PRI in-person conference in Paris in 2019. Claudia, welcome. The floor is yours. Can you tell us more about this idea of the asset owner platform that you have created?
Yes, of course. The asset owner platform, in its initial idea, started in 2015 when ABP was our largest client and owner, and PFZW, who is PGGM's largest client and owner, both made a commitment related to the Sustainable Development Goals, wanting to contribute to realizing them. And that was at the same time as the UN SDGs were launched. So we worked together to identify what does it mean to contribute to the SDGs through investing, developed a joint definition of our Sustainable Development Investments, or SDIs, and published a taxonomy, all of which were supported also by other investors. And having then worked with a data analytics tool to, through the help of AI, come up with SDI classifications for an entire global capital markets portfolio, we found that our initial idea way back then to set up an asset owner-led standard for contributing to the SDGs, that now was perhaps the moment to establish it, since there was great interest already. So we announced our intention in September 2019, and in 2020, in July, we formally established, together with Australian Super and British Columbia Investments. So it took 5 years in order to be live by 2020, but it has now the potential to become the asset owner-led standard, and we're looking forward to working with others to continue advancing this.
Thank you. You mentioned a bit about the owners of the SDI asset owner platform. You mentioned a few names, and can you tell us about this design authority that you worked with?
Yeah, so it's a clear governance structure. It is owned by and has been set up by PGGM, British Columbia Investments from Canada, Australian Super, and APG. So we together form the design authority. And then we make use of a technology and data platform in order to generate the classifications. So the identification of individual investments, whether they contribute to the SDGs and by how much. And they are then available to the market, these classifications, through Contigo, who's a financial services company, so that you have all the technical infrastructure available, the first line service, etc., that you would normally expect also when it comes to financial data.
And are you looking for other partners? Would you welcome other kind of collaborations?
Yeah, we are already a global group, and we would look to add a maximum of 1 to 3 other asset owners who are like-minded and share the ambition to set up an asset owner-led standard for investing into the SDGs.
Thank you. Before we pass the mic to Piet, can you just tell us how you would define a sustainable development investment, the SDI terms of your platform?
Yeah, for us, we thought what matters most is whether it is a solution, whether it helps to contribute to addressing one of the UN SDG challenges. So it focuses on the core business of an investment, on its products and services, and to what extent they contribute to the SDGs and its goals and sub-goals.
Very clear. Thank you. Piet, maybe you can take it from here and tell us how we could link these SDIs to the United Nations SDGs.
Yeah, the way we see it is that the way the United Nations sliced and diced all the world's troubles, being the SDGs, is the very foundation of the effort that we've started with the other asset owners. So it's like a definition of sustainability, the way the world should look like come 2030, that we adhere to. And then the link with our sustainable development investments is that we started from the SDGs and their targets to look for investable ideas. So, the SDGs are pretty broad and wide, but our interest, of course, is in those SDGs, those targets that have the potential to generate investable ideas. For that, we built a taxonomy. So there's a hierarchy of solutions for every one of those SDGs to guide us in our search for solutions. So the first step is, what solutions qualify as a bona fide contribution, positive contribution to these SDGs? The second step is a set of decision rules to help us decide which companies provide enough of those solutions to merit the label Sustainable Development Investment. Now, if you look at this slide, you'll see that some have been marked with a P, others with an O. The ones with a P have a contribution by companies and their investors that runs through products and services, the way Claudia just described. So these are solutions, products and services, the size of which you can measure as a share of revenues of these companies. Others, the ones marked with an O, don't quite lend themselves to this products and services lens. They are operational impacts. They run from the way a company conducts itself and the way it runs its business, more how it's going about its business than what exactly it produces. These operational impacts are challenging because, they don't quite lend themselves to the objective approach that we've taken with the product-based impacts. And yet we want to rope them in too. So we've established a set of fundamental criteria by which we want to evaluate and identify the acknowledged transformational leaders, the companies that have a big impact on some of these SDGs, but impact that runs from their conduct and operations. So all of that ties very closely into the SDGs, albeit from an investor perspective. The SDGs may not have been meant as an investor framework. We use it as such, but of course we can't invest in all the different sub-targets, but we've identified those where we can.
Very clear, thank you. Now, very concretely, what are the products and services offered by this asset owner platform?
Yeah, at the very heart of the asset owner platform lies the taxonomy of solutions, the what we're looking for in the companies we invest in. The second step, as I said, is the decision rules to establish which companies produce enough of those solutions. Now, what you get as a subscriber to the platform is you gain access to the methodology and you get a data stream. So the classification of a universe of companies according to the SDGs, where some are, but most are not, sustainable development investments. So you get a screen, if you wish, on a big universe, and what it helps you identify is, or what it provides to our subscribers, is a list of companies that are labeled sustainable development investments. And that's an asset owner-led qualification or classification that we believe a lot of subscribers would be interested in.
Claudia, let me come back to you. Would you explain how does the SDI standards differs from other products in the market?
Yeah, perhaps let me first start by saying, why did we choose to do this? I mean, this has been quite an undertaking in terms of the resources that had to go into it. And we did that because we didn't find that there was any other resource in terms of research available in the market that met our clients' ambitions to be truly aligned with the SDGs and also to be fully transparent about how one arrives there. That's a very important consideration for us. So that's why we started it. And I think being asset owner-led is one of the very important considerations. This is not a profit-maximizing venture. And was also important for us that it covers our entire global capital markets portfolio and that it has a clear focus. We do one thing and one thing only. We measure the contribution to the SDGs by our investments based on products and services. So it's very, that focus, that narrow definition gives you an advantage in terms of transparency that we provide. And it is also more objective in the sense that we are not using sustainability data, but it is based on financial metrics. For our own processes as well, our responsible investment report is audited. So therefore, the underlying processes have to be rule-based and auditable with regard to the classifications. And it is, in the industry, you have the trend on innovation, on the use of AI, the use of unstructured data. And this SDI Asset Owner platform is a perfect example of that, which also means that we're continuously focused on improving what we do. That is improving.
Het is 10:30.
Improving the technical capabilities, but of course also improving the standard itself, the taxonomy, to make sure that it is up to date with regard to scientific insights, with regard to market developments. And our ethos is that we want to work together with other stakeholders, and in particular those who also make use of the standard and its underlying data to help and continuously advance this.
Thank you. Piet, a question for you. After more than a year with this platform, how have you progressed? How many companies are screened on their contribution to the SDGs?
Yeah, currently the latest edition of the classification has screened 7,888 companies. And out of those, 1,653 were identified as an SDI. So approximately 20%. And within that classification, SDI, we've made a distinction between majority plays, companies that derive more than 50% of their revenues from one or more of those solutions that we put in that taxonomy, and 616 were decisive plays. So that's companies that derive between 10 and 50% of their revenues from those solutions. And what we do want is to build out from listed equities into bonds and fixed income. In fact, we've already started doing just that. And with time, we also want to take this into the alternatives, the private markets. So the previous slide, talked about, the heart of the enterprise, which is the taxonomy and the decision rules. And the key is that we want to apply this. We started applying this to listed equities, but we want to move beyond that into other asset classes.
And looking to the future, what products, refinements, and extensions are foreseen?
Yeah, as Claudia said, of course, part of the refinement is simply keeping up to date with, new solutions to those SDGs and indeed market developments. So that's refinement of the taxonomy, the decision rules as we currently already have them. Other developments that we see are extensions of the product into other asset classes. And an important one is an extension into something that is more adventurous still. Ultimately, what we'd like to do is not just measure companies' claim to a positive contribution to the SDGs through their revenues or through their conduct in some cases. Ultimately, what we want is to also quantify that impact, that outcome in real world terms, so in tons of carbon avoided, cubic meters of water saved, etc. Now, this will take a while, but ultimately the ambition is to justify and to enhance the SDI classification with real world outcomes, so an outcome metric. Now, this won't happen overnight, obviously. This is uncharted territory, but we feel that asset owners are probably best placed to push that frontier. And it's important, we believe, because we need it for our own communications. You know, we need to prove that our investments have positive real world impact, but we also feel that it's important to counter possible allegations of greenwash. So it's the build out in different directions, more asset classes, bigger universe, that is, of investments, refinement of the methodology and the solutions, and indeed outcome metrics that we see as the work for maybe years to come.
Maybe a few conclusion words for you, Claudia. With this asset owner platform that you have presented to us, what is new? It's not simple ESG, in fact.
What is new? It is the focus on contributing to the SDGs through the core business. It is asset owners collaborating and really also putting a standard and the underlying data into the market. It is the innovation linked to AI, linked to the different techniques applied, that really is very much at the forefront of where the industry is going. And I think that's what sets this apart, and where we hopefully can together make a difference for making our portfolios overall more sustainable and having a better impact and contributing to a more sustainable world.
And Piet, would you have a few words of conclusion?
Yeah, it's that, of course. I can't possibly improve what Claudia just said, but there's something that I forgot to say. If you asked what are the exact products and services that the asset owner platform generates, I think key is that we don't just produce data, we also produce a transparent, a description of why a company in fact qualifies as a sustainable development investments. So you don't just get the numbers, you get the rationale too. And I think this is a very important quality of the enterprise. It's transparency, not just in the way we get to those data, but also in explaining why a company is in fact a solutions provider to the SDGs. And that being supported by asset owners, I believe is key and distinctive in this effort.
Thank you very much. I think the presentation of this ambitious initiative has been very insightful for all of us. It certainly contributes to accelerating the ESG momentum in Europe, and not only in Europe, certainly, but this is the theme of the Responsible Investment Live conference that you will participate to on 19th of May, 2021. Further debates will be heard and led on that day in front of a few hundreds of investment specialists coming from mostly Europe and sometimes the rest of the world. So we count on your presence. We count on you. We thank you for putting these topics forward, and we'll meet you there.
Very good. Thank you.